Good morning. Thank you for coming this morning. This is our our second curriculum spotlight of the year. The first one was on Experience Weeks, which is new this year, and this one will be on conflict resolution in the classroom. And we have a great panel today. But I am just going to introduce Elisa Pickin. She's our Director of Education and the Director of the lower school, and she will introduce everyone else. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm Elisa Pickin, and I've been here for a long time. I'm not going to tell you how long because it's really long. But I want to introduce our teachers. We have Elizabeth Stone. She is the director from the Infant Toddler Building. Holly Alto is a Children's House 3 teacher, and she's our Children's House art teacher. Beth Szyminski was a classroom teacher, and now she is our Student Center teacher. And Brian Fackrell, who is the director of upper school, and he also teaches in middle school. So we have representation from, and he taught upper elementary last year, so we have representation from all of the different levels here as we talk about conflict resolution in a Montessori classroom. It does look different in a Montessori classroom than you might see in traditional schools. Even thinking back to when you were in school, how teachers handled conflicts. I think I actually do not have any memories at all of my teachers helping with conflict. It was a lot of, just ignore him or just, move away from her kind of thing. But I actually don't have any really good memories of how my teachers helped me through something, which is kind of sad when you think about it. I have lots of memories of my mother working through things. I have 3 siblings, so there was lots of really interesting things going on in our family. But when we were talking about this and thinking back, I really didn't have anything that I could draw from my experience and I went to a public school for most of my life, and then I went to a private school for middle school. But so thinking about that, keeping in mind what your experiences are, and thinking about what we do in a Montessori school. We often get the question, how do you handle conflict in a Montessori classroom? And the short answer is, there is no right answer or recipe card. We all like recipe cards. We like a plan to follow. But, and we have one, but we just to know that you deviate from it all the time based on the children that you have in front of them and their age level. That's why we have representation from all the different levels here, because what an infant and a toddler are dealing with and what a Children's House student is dealing with is very different than what happens in upper elementary and middle school. So we have to keep that in mind. Every scenario, every child, every adult is different, and what they bring to the table adds to the situation. So we remember that every time we deal with a conflict or anything in the classroom, that there is a mixture of common sense, compassion, firmness, and consistency. So the children know what to expect. So, and like I said, remembering the age of the children that you're helping and that they will need different levels of support. You can see up here that we have a couple different tables with materials set up on them. In every classroom there is a peace corner, and it looks different in every classroom, so we have some different examples here. But it's a place in the classroom where the children can go and have a moment of peace. You might even see an adult go there if they need a moment of peace, and that's okay too. We talk about modeling in a Montessori classroom all the time, and even for a child to see that an adult needs to take a minute, then that's okay for them to see too. So we have these things, so at the end you can come up and explore with some of the materials. One thing that as a parent that you can remember and as a teacher is that whenever there's a situation happening, it's not really about you. A lot of parents feel that they feel like if their child is having a conflict, it's a reflection of them. And that is not usually the case. It's usually something completely different. It's the child asking for guidance in a situation where he is uncomfortable or he has strange feelings about it and he doesn't know what to do with them. So remembering that too when you approach a situation, or if a teacher comes to you and says, here's what happened today, all parents think like, I'm a terrible parent. I didn't do enough to make sure that my child knows what to do. But they're all learning, and we're all learning in this together, and we're here to support each other. So we talk about not being afraid of conflict in the classroom, because every time there is a situation, it is a beautiful moment for teaching them how to manage it. And so just remembering that too. It's good to talk to the child through it, and it's okay to use a firm voice so they know that what has happened is not acceptable. But you have to, when you're starting off, get ready to listen and try to get what they're feeling out of them. So, and a good way to do that is to start off by asking them, what's going on? How are you feeling right now? And let them talk. And if they're not ready to talk, these peace corners that we have in the classroom is a great place for them to come and read a book, work with some of the materials, just for them to calm down. And when they're ready, you can ask them what happened. And don't jump to conclusions. Don't assume that you know everything that's happening. And when they're ready to talk, they will give you their side of the story. And then there's always the part of, let's talk to our friend. Are you ready to talk to your friend? And if they're not ready, we have to be okay with that too and give them more time. And I think one of the beautiful things about a Montessori classroom and the way that the classroom is set up is that time is built in, and the teachers are there. There's always 2 teachers in the classroom, and so they are able to take that time with these situations. When they are ready, after they've been, having a minute to themselves, it's really important that you always follow through, because they'll remember if you don't follow through, and the other friend will remember too, so that's a really important piece. And then when both children are ready, you sit down and you invite them to talk to each other. Holly will talk a little bit more about the peace rose and how we use that in the classroom. So, and often at that point, the children will need help on how to communicate with each other. And again, it's another amazing opportunity for growth and learning. So let me just switch this. As with every part of the Montessori classroom, if you've been to Spotlights before, you know that everything really starts with the prepared environment. Montessori, she has a quote in her book, The Secret of Childhood. The first aim of the prepared environment is, as far as it is possible, to render the growing child independent of the adult. And that is just a key part of Montessori and our Montessori environments. Her idea of the prepared environment, that was everything that the child came in contact with and everything that they worked with, was guiding them towards that learning and exploration, but also independence. So you'll see in all of the Montessori classrooms, it seems really busy, but it's calm and it's orderly, and there's a lot of movement and activity, but the children are purposeful in their movements and what they're doing. They're free to choose their work and work at their own pace. And within that environment, they have this element of freedom and self-discipline, but it's all guided by the way that the classroom is set up. Even if you walk in and you're not really sure what a material is for, just ask one of the teachers and they'll give you like the 9 things that the material is there for. There's some different aspects of the environment. Freedom is that big one where everything in there, the children are free to move and free to choose and free to work with their materials. They have freedom to interact socially. You'll see a lot of that happening when they're working together. They are allowed to not be interrupted by other people, which you don't often think of as like a freedom in the classroom, but that is a big part of what we have. And then they have that freedom of choice, which is really important. A Montessori classroom is beautiful. Everything is purposeful. Everything is uncluttered and well-maintained, and that is just inviting them to come in and learn and to work and to be together. Montessori also has a deep respect for nature and being outside. She says to take them outside as much as you can, but also you'll see in the classrooms that there's a lot of wood and bamboo and glass and cotton, getting those natural materials into the classroom. This year we have an outdoor classroom initiative that I think everyone's heard about. You can peek out into our outdoor space out there that we've set up for Children's House so far, but just really having them be part of outside and being able to do that. Also in the classroom, you'll see everything is child size, which also just invites them to be independent of the adult. They don't need the adult to get them things or get them their snack. Like, it's all part of what they are doing and their independence. And then there's that social environment of the classroom where they are free to interact with each other, but with that does come conflict. And that's where we have these opportunities for the teachers to help and guide and help them through these different scenarios. Holly will also talk about grace and courtesy lessons, and Beth, I think everyone will touch on that, but those are taught all of the time from the moment they walk into the classroom until the moment that they leave, and all of those lessons are kind of arming them with strategies and things to do when there is a conflict. So often the things that we're doing in the classroom will help prepare them for when there is a conflict, so they're able to use those strategies. I think that it's important to remember in a Montessori classroom that we're here to teach their whole self, just like what Beth Stone was just saying about her grandson saying, they care about learning, but they don't care about my life. Like, that is such a key part of Montessori, that we are developing the whole child and not just his intellect. And so I think that that's a perfect story to bring to the table, and just amazing that he can see that difference in a Montessori classroom. After the environment, the biggest thing that we have here is the respect for the child. It's really the center of everything, and it's what is, I think, the most different and the most exceptional about a Montessori classroom. Respect is being both taught in the culture of the classroom and in the practices of the classroom all day long, every day, in everything that we do. At any moment, if a child is not treating a material respectfully, a teacher will just gently remind them, oh, when you're done with this, we're gonna wash the table and get it ready for the next person. And just even those little things are helping them to remember to respect the environment and then respecting each other. Teachers always guide the children in a way that is respectful to them, getting right down on their level, asking them how they're feeling, talking them through scenarios, and giving them strategies. So within that, I think we're gonna start talking about the different levels of starting with infants, because even at infants, they do have some conflicts. So I think I'll turn it over to Beth.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad you came, and I'm hoping we can give you lots of little tidbits of information to help you navigate your way through the different developmental stages of children. So I'm going to start with infants, and I thought that perhaps I should define what infant means, because everybody has a different idea of what an infant is. And so the word infant is from la enfant, which means without words. Doesn't mean without thought, it just means without words. And so in Montessori, we look at the infant stage as being from birth to 18 months. And it's because somewhere between 17 and 18 months, the child's mind starts to shift cognitively, and they interact with the environment and with each other in a different way. So with infants, I never look at it as conflict resolution, because it's just really about helping the baby understand what they need. So it's giving the baby, the infant, a voice. And babies have very specific ideas about what they want and when they need it, and it's our job to help them to tell us what they want in many different ways, with their body, with their voice, with their cry, all the different cries. And for us to respect that communication and meet their needs right away. So when an infant is letting us know in many ways that they're upset about something, they have a conflict within themselves about what they need, and how quickly we can understand those words and meet those needs. trust and helps us to have this reciprocal respect. So this is one of the things that's kind of funny about infants, is that if you have a baby that's non-mobile, we call them non-mobile, so they can roll and kick and move, but they can't really flip over and crawl away, right? And so you have a non-mobile baby that's sort of laying there, and a mobile baby that sees something on the other side of the baby that's lying down, and just decides to crawl right over them, right? Because they don't have any idea that this infant laying there is a real baby, or is something that's going to be not happy with what their movements are. And so that baby's crawling away, however they're doing, right over top. And what's so interesting is that usually the baby that is being crawled over is not upset, right? That baby's not crying. You would assume that that baby would be the one, oh no, he's going to hurt him. And, just the teacher would get all upset. No, we don't do it that way. We just watch. And it's usually the baby that's crawling over the one that's upset because something is in their way. They want to get that toy and they can't get it. And so they're trying, and then there's this obstacle in the way. And so the teacher comes in and gently says, oh look, see? Here's the baby, here's your friend. Right here, we have to go around the baby. And they're just like, no, I want that toy, And so it's just helping them understand the world around them. And that's a really big piece of infant, it's respect. When they're focused on something, we protect them. We make sure that the other babies don't crawl in their space. And there's not a lot of focus on who has what. The whole sharing thing is just not applicable with babies because they give and take. And they're learning to release. So they have a ball or a toy. They give it to you, right, and then they really don't give it to you, right? And they want it back again. It's because they're cognitively trying to figure out how to let go and how to take. And so it's not about sharing. Oh, you have to share. It's not about that. It's really about watching them and seeing, and watching them and seeing their responses. Because there will be a time when a child will take something from someone else and they hang on to it and scream, right? Mine! And so that's when you shift into the toddler age group, which is about 17 to 18 months to 3. And then it's a completely different shift with understanding other. Because toddlers don't know that you think something differently than they think. So they don't understand why you don't understand them. Because they're assuming that you know what they know. And that you want what they want. And that's where it's not really conflict, it's just cognitive development, it's just understanding. So if two children are fighting over a truck, and they're both coming, they both got it, the teacher can't assume who had it first or who's right or who's wrong, it doesn't matter. You're bringing both children in together, and you're looking at both of them with respect, because we know that they're trying to understand each other. And saying, oh, and acknowledging emotions first. I see you both want this truck. I see you both are upset. And they still won't let go. They're holding on, and they're not going to let go of that truck. Both of them, even when you're acknowledging them. And then you move to the next stage in this, which is understanding their feelings. Look, she's crying. See her tears? See her face? Reading emotion, helping them understand what this cry face is and the mad face. Understanding emotion and how it's projected on the child's face. Look, see, she's really upset. Her tears are coming. Her face is sad. And then understanding you really wanted that truck. And helping them understand the situation they're in. And then the next phase is helping them to understand what to do next time, right? It's really easy to say, okay, fix this, and then off you go as a teacher. We can manage this. We can, help them move on. But what we forget, I think, sometimes as adults is this is going to happen over and over again. So how do you help prevent it? How do you give children the ability to know what to do the next time the conflict comes? And that's really important for toddlers to understand that. So we give them the words. We say stop. That's nice and easy. Stop with their hands up. It's sort of universal. The child doesn't even have to articulate stop. They can just go S or P, and the other children sort of understand that word. And then we say, use your words. Tell him, I was using this truck first. And you can have it when I'm finished. So the teacher is interpreting and using that language to help the child understand how to resolve, how to talk about what their needs are. And when we start doing that when they're 17 and 18 months, we're putting the words to their emotions and their actions. By the time they're 2.5 and 3, saying, you can have this when I'm finished. And it's amazing to watch them. When they're finished with it, they will actually go seek out the other child and give it to them. And there's one scenario, and then I'll move on to the next one. One scenario that happened the other day on our playground, and it was two little guys, and they each had a little toy that they were using, little trucks that they were coveting. And one child lost his on the playground. It's a big space for them. And so he started going after the other child relentlessly. We were just having to stop him at every turn because he wanted this truck. And finally he just grabbed it and pushed the child down onto the ground. So we came over and we picked them both up, we talked to them, and then I brought the one that was having trouble with understanding that the other little boy, child 2, we can call child 1 and child 2, had that car, and he needed to play with it right now. And so I brought the child over, and we sat on the steps, and I held him, and talked about him, and I let him watch and see. Pretty soon, as we were talking, and this was maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes, the other child found his truck, found it somewhere on the playground, and brought it over to him and handed it to him. This child is 22 months old. So the capability of children to have empathy, to understand a situation is extremely high. So it's really quite amazing.
That's so sweet.
It really is. Because we're not judging. We're not saying, oh, you're the bad child because you pushed. Or you're the good child because you're crying. You're the, we don't look at it that way. We look at it as social learning, understanding each other. So, yeah.
So I am going to talk about the Children's House level. And the Children's House level is all about concrete materials. And so we have children coming in at 2.9, and we go all the way up to 6. That's a lot of different developmental stages that go on and not necessarily along with the chronological age. So I just brought a couple of things to talk about, just like Beth. We start with that, understanding your own emotions. Wow, you look really sad, but tell me what's going on. And getting them to name emotions and trying to give words like frustration, so they have a bigger vocabulary to explain what's going on inside of them and a better ability to express that to their peers and to their teachers. So we do a lot of work with things like talking about feelings, expressing feelings. Even if you don't have to be able to read or write, you can just look at a picture and begin to attach words to these different feelings. loneliness and sadness, and develop empathy. Some children aren't naturally empathetic. Like you said, the kids who come from the toddler house have already been at work in developing a deeper level of empathy, and we can see that. And some children do not have that naturally. So that's an important thing that we develop, and some of the strategies for that is also distraction. Like sometimes whatever is going on with this child, the conflict isn't about a child in the classroom. It isn't about struggle with a teacher. It's really about some internal thing. What I don't know is the story is, I was really mischievous this morning. I wouldn't put on my socks. I wouldn't brush my teeth. My mom finally had it in the car when I didn't have shoes on, and we had upset words in the car seat. And now I'm still carrying that around. So I think sometimes we have to figure out what's the real story and what's going on with you, and getting them to express more of that. Feel safe, really safe in our environment. To do that is so important. So I never make assumptions about what's really going on with kids or with the conflict. I always start with, I didn't see this, so can we all slow down, take breath? And one of the biggest things in working with kids who are upset and verbal is that emotions begin to run high. Even if there wasn't any hitting going on, there's usually lots of yelling going on from both sides. And so one of the things that I've learned is to start with taking 3 big breaths, and there's brain research to go along with this, that if you can get children to stop just long enough, you're going to get to yell some more if you want, but first let's just take 3 deep breaths together. And we practice this when kids aren't emotional, so we call it the silence game, and we start our silence game as we're all going to see how long can we really be very, very quiet and peaceful. And it starts with, you don't expect more than a few seconds. You start the silence game with the expectation there's going to be lots of wiggling and giggling, and I'll tell you, by the time you get to June, those children can really sit in a circle with their eyes closed, breathing in and out, and not making a sound, and not distracted by the kids in the room next door or the trucks going by or anything. I mean, I've had an ambulance go by and they don't break the silence. It's amazing. And Montessori, I didn't figure that out. I take no credit. That's a Montessori thing. She figured that out. She learned that in 1910. But it really helps them find a center within themselves. And it brings respect and that sense of community, that this is a community of people that will support you no matter what's going on. Even if you had a fight with your parent in the morning and you're still resonating with feeling like, I wish I could fix that thing. Or even if you feel grumpy because you didn't eat right today, or even if you're just plain irritated because it's raining again for the 3rd day. All these people are here in support of you and your feelings, and that is precious. I really can't emphasize enough in the Children's House, my experience. The thing I love about Montessori, because I taught in the traditional sector for a long time, is this sense of community and the sense of that each individual gets to shine on their own, but also really connect to the whole group. And there isn't any good kids, bad kids. We're working on that all year long about that everybody can express their feelings. So feelings is a huge part of what we do. Another big thing is reciprocity, and not all kids are able to really have a conversation with someone else. They're really good at talking, not so good at hearing other people's real words or voices. So one of the things that I set up for kids who have difficulty with that is a game called the conversation game, and it seems really simplistic, but you put a rug in between 2 children and you say, we're going to practice being good listeners. And so one child gets to make the puppet talk, and then the other one can't talk, they have to wait. And then the other puppet gets to say something back, and it's a game of reciprocity, which is really important for them to develop. Another sort of background thing is we begin to talk in the Children's House level about peacekeepers. And they'll go more about that in the elementary level, but we begin just by having opportunities to respect other cultures, to understand that everybody around the world has the same, all kids have conflicts, all grown-ups have conflicts, all people in the world have to work to be peaceful. You don't wake up all the time being peaceful, you have to work at being peaceful and find ways to make yourself feel more peaceful. This is a Diwali candle, just to represent that. We don't do a lot about holidays, but the ones that we do, we try to really tie into things that are common threads throughout cultures. And that would be like the light in every community, the light in every person, and connect all those dots that way. And then also in about that, once you learn to be a peaceful person, you can offer that like a gift to other people. That's a thing that little kids, you can look a little kid in the eyes, but you're just a little person, but you have a lot to give. You can give empathy and being a good listener and caring to other people. So that ties into the whole, we have respect for them, we teach them to be respectful for other people. Sounds foundational, and it is, but it's what we do every day. As far as real conflicts go, I'll just tell, like, there's always different situations, but one scenario would be that a child just says, so-and-so hurt my feelings. And so we teach them, well, I don't know, I didn't see it, I don't know if I can really fix this for you, but you sound like you have strong feelings about this, I think we better have a conversation. And that's where we're building up to conversation. And so, would you ask so-and-so to come over? And of course, if you know the other child's fleeing and being really less than cooperative, you want to intervene, but you really want them to, you want to empower them to do it themselves. So we start with, I'll ask both children to come over. I generally will do the Peace Rose in a group setting, so we all understand what it is. But if I haven't done that yet, then I might just start with these two children. So this is called the Peace Rose. So-and-so has a message for you, and I want both of you to really be good listeners. Only one person talks at a time. That's what we do at circle time, right? One person talks at a time. I'm doing a lot of talking, but I want so-and-so to speak. So I'm going to give this rose to child number 1, and child number 1's going to say, you hurt my feelings. You said my purple shoes were not beautiful, or whatever the thing is. You said my tower was a baby tower. Whatever happened to hurt this child's feelings. And I'm, of course, thinking, I have so many things to do. I know this is important, but can we get through this? But I'm a very calm teacher, and try to keep those thoughts to myself. And child, then, are you finished? Did you get everything out? I did. Child number 2, can you please, do you have something to say about this? Well, purple is really a dumb color, but sorry, I said that thing, and whoa, wait. I take the rose back. Okay. As the teacher here, I heard all these words, and I want you to hear your friend's words, but it sounds like you're using disrespectful way to express yourself. Is it respectful for you to say that purple is a bad color, or whatever? And child will say, no. And they know that is not respectful. So try again. And they'll say, and in a sincere voice, please, and they will really look at the person and really say, I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings, and I really don't think there's anything wrong with your shoes are nice, and I'm just grumpy and I'm sorry. And then I say, can you still be friends? And that's the big part of this thing is, they put both hands on the rose, or they shake hands, whatever seems appropriate at the time for these children, and usually they'll both really look at each other, and they can't help it. They just start like giggling or smiling at each other because the formality of it, they know, feels kind of ridiculous over the thing I said was really silly and not nice, and I'm really sorry, and you really weren't that offended, and we fixed it in this way that feels meaningful, that the fixing feels very meaningful to them. So the Peace Rose doesn't get a lot of artificial use. Once there's sometimes a few little silly things that go on, but mostly it becomes really an intensely useful thing for them, and it only comes out. One child will go running, I think you guys need a Peace Rose, and will even help them along. Older kids will say, here you go, I think you can work it out. And they do. It becomes a really useful and beautiful tool, and I'll tell you, it gains dust by June because they don't need it anymore. They really begin to assert themselves in ways that are peaceful and powerful within the classroom every day. I did bring a couple of little items that I just wanted to address, just because they might help you at home as parents. And of course, not everybody's on my level, but you can translate these into younger and older kids. And one of the things about the brain research with kids who aren't peaceful, with kids who have tantrums, who can get stuck on things, is this idea of 3 breaths, that by taking 3 deep breaths, you can not only get the child to calm down, but also you can flood their brain with oxygen. And when you do that, their brain becomes more rational. And this happens with the youngest children all the way up to adults. It's a very useful tool. So I would always preface, if your child is tantruming, like, I can't have a conversation because you seem too upset. Let's take 3 breaths together. And it helps you to get more rational too if you're taking these breaths with the child who's, really ruining someone's wedding right now. So 1 breath, and if you do it with me, really, you can feel it, like, in through your nose and out through your mouth, and 1 more. And can't you just feel your shoulders relaxing and your whole body getting more ready to be peaceful? This little exercise, and Becky Bailey is a researcher who works with really difficult kids, and she has written a book about conscious discipline. And so this is one of her tools. She has a few different exercises, but one of them is called pretzel, so you can always try this, and that is that you twist your legs up, and you have the child put their hands in a twisted way, twist themselves up like a pretzel, all their emotions, your feelings. Let's pretend we're really crabby together, even if at this point it's so silly that you can't be mad anymore. Come on, let's do it. Let's do the pretzel. And we do it as a group, and we're all like really, really tight. Are you really, really tight like pretzel? Okay, and let it all go. And that the physical act of doing these things also gets all the neurons in your body releasing some of the stuff that you're really holding on to physically in this emotional upset period. And that can really help as well. Sometimes kids don't know why they're really crabby or upset or tense or running around being mad. Another thing is soothing sounds. They don't always want to hear classical music, and let's be calm and do this really sweet. They sometimes just want to make noise in a really repetitive way. And instead of whacking their shoe on the wall in their bedroom, you can sometimes have a little tool. Rain sticks can be just one thing. You can come up with whatever it is. It can be a basket of instruments, anything. For teenagers, you can come up with a different strategy for them to have some soothing kind of, it might be a white noise machine or something else that really helps them de-stress. I know I'm going off a long time, but one of the things that I've always had in my classroom that kids love is, it's called the sunshine cloth. It has multiple purposes, but the biggest one is if you're feeling really blue, if you're feeling really sad, you don't have to talk about it, you don't want to talk about it. And this is called the sunshine cloth, and I've had different versions of it, but what you do with it is you can do anything you want with it. You can lay it down and just lay on it. You can roll yourself up like a tortilla. You can hide under it. We can't hide in school because teachers need to know where you are and what you're doing, and the quiet corner is quiet corner, but everyone can see you there, and sometimes you don't want to show your face. You don't want to share your emotions right now, so you can hide under here in the middle of the classroom, and I hope that the yellow sunshines will help your heart to feel more sunshiny. And I know there's people in this room whose kids have done this, and it works. You emerge from that feeling like I was able to reset my buttons in a way that worked for me. And the last thing I'll talk about is listing. I learned this from the girl I work with, Katie, and I think it's brilliant. It's the same thing as brain research. They figured out that the part of your brain that has to name things or list things, and this will work for you. If you're super stressed out, and when people are really super stressed out and on tantruming, not able to think rationally, if you just get them to list things, you can say, and we did this yesterday, so I brought it, because I thought it was brilliant, you know, Katie had a couple of kids having tantrums and fighting. She said, well, when we get done with all of this problem, you know, I was trying to remember, what's the name of that seventh planet? Oh, I know. Want me to write them down for you? Yes, would you do that? Oh, we'll do it together. You want to do it? Let's do it. And they went and they made a list of all the planets. Oh yeah, don't forget this one. And they listed the planets. They had to talk about it, list them. It's just listing something in your own brain. Just going through your grocery list, going through the list of things you have to do, listing, you know, getting kids to say all the alphabet letters. It engages a different part of your brain. So and you emerge from that less upset. Pretty cool. And the last thing I will say is that my scenario, briefly, I will really make it brief, but I think it's powerful and it's good for everybody to hear, is that we had a child on the playground really having a tantrum, couldn't join the group. I'm not lining up. I'm not doing anything teachers tell me to do. And the teacher was just saying, what am I going to do? I have, you know, these kids. I have to get everybody inside. We have a schedule. What's wrong? I don't want to talk. You know, I'm just not going in. I'm not lining up with these kids. And so, of course, the teacher manages the best she can. She's like, listen, you've got to stop doing this. I can't help you if you don't tell me what's going on. So they got inside and she's like, please help me. I don't know what to do about this situation. So I intervene and say, okay, how about if we don't go in? Because sometimes people need privacy when they're upset about something. You don't want to have an audience. Right now you've had a big audience. I can't help this. I wasn't with you. I don't know what happened. But I can see that inside of you, all of this like hysteria is coming from something that is really hurting you inside. You look like a person who's hurting. You don't look like a person who's, you know, acting silly or being obstinate or being oppositional. You look like a person who's hurting. And I can't help you unless you tell me what that's about. And the child said, well, yeah, someone really hurt my feelings. So I said, okay, let's do the conversation thing instead of me being all talking as like the teachers do. How about if we just sit down across from each other and so we went back into the classroom because the child got calm instantly. All right, I'm a listener. I'm listening to everything you have to say. Do you have something to tell me? And the child says, yes, so-and-so said to me, I don't belong here. You're bad, you don't belong here. And I said, wow, that's something we can do something about. And I can see why you were feeling very turbulent inside of you. You were upset. So we call the other person over. The other person like instantly starts bawling. That's their strategy, like, think I'm in trouble. Whoa. Please save your tears. We will empathize with you in a minute. This person has a message for you, and it's pretty strong. Can you please express how that made you feel? You made me feel like so bad, like I don't belong in school, and I don't belong in my class, and you made me feel terrible. And the other child, through the tears, is saying, I did say that, and I was just frustrated with you, and I am so really sorry, like the most sincere apology. And of course, I mean, it's easy to be a preschool teacher or kindergarten teacher at that level. You can just hug everybody and have everybody feel better and use the peace rose and really, you know, I get to be the good guy in this situation, but they did it themselves. They really did. They needed some guidance, but kids are beautiful inside. They are amazing. Like all this stuff about Montessori and the Peacemakers in the world, it's not just talk. It's real stuff that these kids are doing real work every day that is going to bring them into the future. I come to work every day believing that, honestly, and that's why I'm up here instead of giving lessons right now, because I want you to hear that message. So, thank you. And on to elementary.
Hi, my name is Beth Sminsky, for those of you who don't know me. Elementary is quite different than who we just heard from, our little ones. And they have words, they have loud voices, and when they're upset, everybody knows about it. When they come, they'll use the word mean a lot in elementary. And so, as teachers, we do a lot of talking. We can start off by saying, you know, we all have the peace rose in here. We do a lot of talking about this in the beginning of the school year. You know, what does it mean to be a good friend? What does it mean to be me? How does everyone feel? And from there, we go to, well, how do you want the classroom to run to make you feel, you know, that you can do your best work in here? And so they make up their own rules. So we have them make their rules, they sign it like a contract, we put it up on the wall. And so when there are conflicts, sometimes we just refer to the wall and they'll say, oh yeah, I said I didn't make these rules, you know, you did. But sometimes they'll come in and they'll be very upset and they'll say, so-and-so was mean to me outside, or so-and-so was mean to me because, you know, they won't let me work with them. And so we will have them talk it out together. And the teacher is not far away, listening. Sometimes they can work it out and sometimes they can't. And that's when we will step in, uninvited, but I will say, you know, I don't think you're getting anywhere with this, and the peace rose doesn't seem to be working. So let's just sit outside in the hall and just have a conversation. And so they do know how to take turns by now. And so, you know, we'll start with one person and the other person does have to wait, and if they can't wait, you know, I gently hold their hand and they know, and then the other person listens, and then they'll say something like, well, that's not what I thought was happening. And so all of a sudden it is a communication problem. And so then they start talking and the problem can be resolved. There are times when the problem doesn't get resolved day in and day out and day in and out about, well, I want to work with you, I want to work with you, I want to work with you. And the other child will say, but I worked with you yesterday. Can I work with so-and-so today? And some children don't like to hear that. So they have to learn. They have to learn to share. Share used to be toys. Now it's sharing my friends. And that is a very hard thing for some children to learn, that, yes, I'm still your friend, Brian, but right now I want to go sit over there with, you know, Holly and work with Holly. Or sometimes an older children will come by, if it's, you know, two first years, and say, well, this table over there has 4 chairs, why don't you all just sit together? And so what's beautiful about the elementary Montessori and having these older children come in is that they become problem solvers also. And some step in uninvited, and the younger ones will listen to them, and then problems get resolved, but sometimes they don't. Or sometimes we don't even know what's going on. And children will just be upset and they won't tell us. They won't tell us until it's 8 o'clock at night and you're putting your child to bed, and all of a sudden you hear what happened. And as a parent at 8 o'clock at night, you're exhausted, and I'm going to tell you to just be patient and listen. And, you know, I have some strategy or helpful suggestions that were on one of the Montessori website. And the children just feel that their bedroom, their house is the safest place, and you are the person that they need to tell what's going on. And so you just have to listen. As tired as you are, you have to listen, and you have to just say, you know, okay, and you can give them some strategies, what they can do. But I'm telling you, as a parent and a teacher, to send us an email. I used to say to my parents on opening night, if your child comes home with a problem and keeps them up at night, please let me know, so that we will help them the next day work out this situation. We're always there to help guide them if they're not comfortable enough yet. There's some children who are comfortable to tell you everything. You know, this is happening, she's mean, and there are other children who just keep it in because they're not comfortable, or they don't feel confident in themselves, and they're afraid. So please, just listen with open ears, shoot the teacher an email so that they can help. I used to always say every child needs to go to bed with, a light heart and happy. The second thing, try not to judge them, even though it's 8 o'clock at night, and say, oh my God, that other child. There are always two sides to a story, and sometimes it's really not as big as your child makes it out to be. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's just something really little that couldn't let go. And if things, continue, we always invite parents in. Come in and observe the classroom and see how it's run, or see how they're interacting with their friends. And just remind the child that the teacher is your friend too, and they're there to help you. So that being said, the Peace Rose starts off in the beginning of the year, but by the middle of the year, they're learning to talk, whether with another teacher or with an older children, to help them get through their scenarios. And last year we did research on Peacemakers, and so each child researched them, and they read their lives, and they're becoming compassionate and empathetic, and they're reading about what happened to these people's lives, and they're like, oh my goodness, how could that be? How could the, Rosa Parks, how come that person did that to her? I mean, there's lots of talking in elementary, lots of stories, lots of, sometimes it will just pop up in the middle of a lesson, math lesson, and so we stop and we listen and we talk. And so that the children can truly get an understanding of what, is happening to that person or whatever, and they bring it internally with them. So I hope that made sense.
Then as we go upstairs, the 9 to 12-year-old in the plane of development, which Dr. Montessori often referred to in her funny way as the age of rudeness. So when these 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, as you can see, they've had a great foundation. They have the concrete, the rose, the table, the blanket. It's continuing on. And in upper elementary, it's kind of that transition of the concrete to the abstract. And that still goes with peace education, conflict management, and resolution as well. So in here, part of the groundwork that we set for them in upper elementary is we have themes, trimester themes of point of view, communities, and interdependence. And for this year, everything that they do, whether it's in science, math, cultural, is kind of, it all stems back to that right now is point of view. And you can use that in conflict resolution, talking about the point of view. Some of the materials we use for them in upper elementary, we use Ready, Set, Relax. I don't think I need to tell anyone what mindfulness is in today's world, but we do utilize a lot of mindfulness and taking that time to pause, reflect, and move forward. Another awesome thing is 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. This is Sean Covey, Stephen Covey's son, who wrote this. And in upper elementary, they get an introduction to some of the big themes. We brush over what it is to later really hit this book hard in middle school. But they do go over some of these themes more of as a peace education instead of conflict resolution. Lets them know a lot about themselves. Most of the conflicts, speaking of conflict resolution, in upper elementary has to do with fairness. It's everything has to be fair. But you have one more problem than I have. That is not fair. That is an immediate conflict right then and there that is real for them. And in this time, and the fairness, it gets bigger. It's a 4th year might start off with, it's not fair that they had one extra problem. Well, now in 5th grade, it's not fair that I have more work. Or it's not fair that down the hallway, they get to do this. And looking outward globally, and then by 6th grade, they're starting to, think more in my community. It's not fair that our community doesn't get to do this. We don't get to do that. Which then leads into middle school of a more global view. The fairness, the social justice element of it. So in upper elementary, in our plans of development here, it talks a lot, they like to make their own decisions. This is a chance for them to put a lot of the work or put a lot of what they've studied into practice in their own. What does it mean to them? What is their peace rose? How do they address conflict? And what we use is a lot of Wellesley College put out the Open Circle curriculum, which is a K through 5 curriculum. It's really great. A lot of role playing, a lot of sitting down. Let's take a moment and go over examples. And it's a great chance for the teacher to have somewhat of a scripted dialogue. Something as simple as, let's practice giving a compliment to someone. And we take turns going around the circle, acknowledging someone for a kind act, complimenting something they've done. Down the road, the next lesson could be, if someone says something and it may offend you, what are ways that you could express that? We go around the circle, we have some wait time, we all think of the different ways, and it gives us a toolkit. It gives the students a toolkit that they can use for future conflict. And in the open circle and all the other stuff, it really references a lot of positive self-talk, how to listen. Part of here, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Really important at that age to be able to take a moment and listen to their peers. How to compliment others, some basic rules of negotiation. And then, like your cards, it's now more of the body language. What do you think that means? Yes, you said, I like your shoes, but you were, whew, I like your shoes. So it's a lot of over-dramatic scenarios to really prove a simple point. Lisa, nice glasses. Yeah, but I said nice glasses, what do you mean? I don't know why they're upset, I told them they had nice glasses. So we go into body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, and we always remind them that you need to assume that everyone's kind of having a bad day. We can't assume that it's always hunky-dory and peaches and cream. We have to assume that maybe something that you said yesterday, you got high five today, might not be the same reaction. It could offend someone. So that's a big part of it as well. Now in middle school, social justice, huge part of what we jump into. We're actually, next Friday, we're doing 5 hours of volunteer work with the trustees. We're going to Moraine Farms, and we're going to be hopefully pruning some trails and doing some land maintenance there. But a lot of it is giving back. They see this social justice. They want to be active in their community. They want to give back. And this is a way that really roots them and deepens them into their community, because you don't want conflict in your community. And it's more of the peace education in front of conflict that's such a big deal and so awesome in Montessori. Right now, this year, the one difference that Montessori schools stand out in the middle school is the personal world curriculum. This year, we're going through the heroic journey. Joseph Campbell did some work on the stages of the hero's journey. You can think of like Luke Skywalker, Katniss Everdeen, Harry Potter, how they go through these different phases where they receive a call, they're crossing the thresholds and meeting their ogres and allies, the initiation of change, the road of trials, finding the key and receiving the boon, sharing the treasures, and the rites of passage. And through this program, they learn about service work, giving back, ways to be stewards in their community, leaders of their community. And all of these really address the most important thing of adolescence, and that's the social, physical, psychological, intellectual, and more moral and ethical parts of them. So that is all I have for upper elementary school.
Thanks, Brian.
Big work.
So I got this from one of my trainers about being a hummingbird teacher, so you can read that. But it is, in essence, not helicoptering our children, but being there for them and helping to guide them, stepping back enough, but stepping in when they need you. So they know that you're there for them, but you're also going to let them do it and use their strategies and use the things that they've learned, but you are always there for them to lend a hand and to help them through these different situations. It's not protecting them from every single thing, because conflicts happen, and they happen every day to every single one of us. And the most important thing is that we are learning how to be respectful, how to be good community members, but also being able to communicate and take care of our feelings, but also being respectful of others. So it's just a really important part of our work here in a Montessori school. This is one of my favorite quotes by Maria Montessori. Peace is what every human being is craving for, and it can be brought about by humanity through the child. And that is exactly what we're doing here, is we are trying to change the world through our children. Before you leave, if you want to come up and look at some of the great materials, the books that are on the shelf up here are books that we use in the classroom with the children, or in the library. I've read a lot of them to them, and just giving their stories, just real life scenarios about what happens to them every day. And it's always nice to have a book about it, and then you have the discussion where they're like, oh my word, that happened to me, and here's what I did. So, and some of the materials that we use to help our children in the classroom. So, does anyone have any questions for our panel? Yes?
I have a really quick question. So where's the level of severity measured, and there's no more trying to resolve this conflict and the child gets removed from the situation?
So, I mean,
when do you stop trying to do all of these wonderful things or when does the act become so severe that you jump out of this realm and you know what I'm saying? I'm thinking of two separate scenarios where there were physical acts involved, and one, in my mind, right, because that's a big difference, like what goes on in our minds and what's actually happening is always two different levels. But so I guess my question is that you have a parent that thinks the conflict was a lot more severe than how it's being handled or treated or being used. Like, how does that then get handled? Like, real fit, like taking a truck is one thing, but like kicking a kid in the face might be something very different. So
usually, like if we have a situation like that, and we have, our children are not perfect, and so we don't try to pretend that these things aren't going to happen. That's where I get to step in. Usually, when there is something physical, they are separated immediately, because trying to have a conversation at that point is not going to be helpful. Everyone needs that moment to calm down. And that's where, back at the beginning where I said, like, using a firm voice and letting somebody know that what they have done is not okay. That's always okay to do. It is never okay for the grown-up to sort of get involved in that kind of, back and forth argument with a child. Like, that is not helpful. And so that is not something that we engage in. But separating them, they will usually come to me or to Brian. We save Paul for the big guns when we need that, but so we do separate that and have those conversations. Very rarely, but it has happened where a much older student, I think it was a middle school student, got into a physical thing, and they were actually removed from the school for a couple of days. So those things do happen. It's very rare. I think in the many years that I've been here, it's happened, that sort of severity has happened once, but we were able to deal with it and address the behavior and do what was best for that child and the rest of the community. So, but we do have levels where, the teachers will bring me in or have the child come into my office and I have that conversation with them, because there are most of the time, these scenarios and talking it through and giving everybody space and working it out is really effective. But there are those times where we have to, pull them aside and be firm and, kind of lay it out that this is how we act and this is how we don't. So, and often sometimes, like Beth was saying in the elementary, sometimes those things will happen, not usually with hitting, but with like the hurt words, and the children don't talk about it in school. And then bring it home, and then it's really important to bring us into it so that we can help with those situations during the day and make sure that they don't happen again. I think in lower elementary and upper elementary that the playground is a great place for those things to be happening sort of under the radar. And once we know about it, then the teachers can really position themselves. I mean, you'll see them kind of spread out anyway, but position themselves so they can hear what's happening and be able to intervene, because they do get into this phase where they feel like they can handle everything on themselves, and don't necessarily want to have the grown-ups involved, but there are times where we do still have to get involved to help them through.
And I look at the safety as the, when to step in. Emotional safety, physical safety, mental safety. If anyone's safety is in question, that's when let's get in there, and a lot of this is, the
Well,
work
and even
beyond that.
With the hummingbird, I zoom in when,
Yep.
when their survival is threatened, because that's when the teachers can do that, and do that. But there are times where we can step back and let them work it out, but not if they are not able to do it, or if they're in danger of escalating it into a situation that will get out of control. All right, well, thank you so much for coming. It's really great to have so many people come up and look at our craft.